The sound. It wasn't animal. It was ancient, deep, coming from beneath the earth, and it was in the stable. Elias Thorne, a man of few words and many scars, stood frozen, his breath catching in his throat. The sound, a low guttural moan, vibrated through the worn floorboards of his stable, a place that had always been a sanctuary, now a chamber of echoes for an unknown terror. His hand, calloused from years of toil, trembled, the beam of his old lantern dancing erratically across the dusty interior. The stable, usually filled with the comforting rustle of hay and the soft snorts of his aging mare, was now eerily silent, save for that unsettling thrum. The air, thick with the scent of damp earth and something metallic, almost electric, prickled his skin. It was a smell he couldn't place, a scent that spoke of forgotten things, of deep, buried secrets. The dust motes, illuminated by the weak light, danced like spectral figures, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to writhe and stretch with each pulse of the sound. Elias's eyes, wide with a mixture of fear and a grim determination, darted around the familiar space, now transformed into something alien and menacing. The sound intensified, a whisper that carried the force of a thunderclap, a mournful lament that seemed to claw at the very fabric of his sanity. It was coming from the packed dirt floor, specifically from a spot where the earth appeared darker, almost wet, despite the relentless drought that had plagued Willow Creek for months. A cold dread seeped into his bones, a premonition of something vast and terrifying. He took a hesitant step forward, then another, each movement a conscious effort against the instinct to flee. The sound pulled him in, a siren song of the unknown. He wasn't alone. Something was there, and it wasn't an animal. The stable, a place of life and labor, had become a threshold to something else, something that whispered of the ancient and the profound. The air grew heavy, pressing down on him, a tangible weight of unseen forces. He could feel the vibrations in his teeth, a low hum that resonated deep within his chest. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the encroaching silence. He raised the lantern higher, its feeble light barely piercing the oppressive gloom. The shadows deepened, twisting into grotesque shapes, playing tricks on his weary mind. He strained his ears, trying to decipher the sound, to give it a name, a form, anything to make it less terrifying. But it remained an enigma, a primal wail from the depths of the earth. He was a farmer, a man of the land, accustomed to the rhythms of nature, to the predictable cycles of life and death. But this was beyond his understanding, beyond the natural order of things. This was something else entirely, and it was waiting for him. The stable, his stable, was no longer his own. It belonged to the sound, to the mystery, to whatever lay hidden beneath the earth, and Elias, against his better judgment, was drawn to it, compelled to uncover its secret no matter the cost. The silence that followed the sound was even more unnerving, a heavy, expectant hush that seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his next move. He swallowed hard, the taste of dust and fear in his mouth. He knew with a chilling certainty that his life, and the life of Willow Creek, was about to change forever. The whispering earth had spoken, and Elias Thorne was listening. Elias Thorne, a man etched by the sun and etched by worry, stood on his porch, the morning sun doing little to warm the chill that had settled deep in his bones. 50 years had carved lines into his face, each one a testament to a life lived hard, a life of relentless struggle against a land that gave little and demanded much. His farm, Willow Creek, was a ghost of its former self, a skeletal outline against the vast, indifferent sky. The fields, once vibrant with the promise of harvest, lay parched and cracked, mirroring the despair in his heart. The stable, now a place of unsettling whispers, leaned precariously, its timbers groaning under the weight of neglect and unspoken fears. Debts, like a relentless tide, crept higher and higher, threatening to engulf him entirely. He lived alone, a solitary figure in a landscape of fading memories. His wife Sarah and his daughter Lily had been taken by a cruel sickness years ago, leaving behind an emptiness that no amount of time or toil could fill. Their laughter, once the melody of his days, now echoed only in the silent chambers of his mind, a bittersweet symphony of what was lost. His only constant companion was Barnaby, an old hunting dog whose muzzle was dusted with gray, his eyes mirroring the quiet resignation in Elias's own. Barnaby, a loyal shadow, followed him from sunup to sundown, a silent witness to his master's unending struggle. The dog's presence, a warm weight against his leg, was a small comfort in a world that offered so little. Elias clung to the land, to every grain of dust, as if he could wring from it the life that had been so cruelly snatched away. His days were a relentless cycle of arduous routine, waking before the first blush of dawn, working until his muscles screamed in protest, eating the meager sustenance he could afford, and finally, collapsing into a fitful sleep, the heavy cloak of loneliness his only blanket. Each night he would step out onto the porch, his gaze fixed on the vast expanse of stars, searching for a sign, a flicker of hope, a whisper of an answer to the silent questions that plagued his soul. The farm was his legacy, a burden passed down through generations, a testament to his family's enduring connection to this unforgiving earth. But it was also his curse, a relentless drain on his spirit, a constant reminder of his failures. He couldn't abandon it even as it slowly consumed him piece by agonizing piece. Every crack in the foundation, every loose board in the barn, every withered stalk in the field, reflected his own slow decay, his gradual crumbling under the relentless pressure of poverty and grief. Yet, beneath the layers of weariness and despair, a stubborn resilience flickered within Elias, a tenacious flame that refused to be extinguished. He remembered Sarah's gentle smile, Lily's infectious laughter, and those memories, fragile as they were, fueled his resolve. He was not a man to surrender, not to the land, not to fate, not to the whispers in the stable. He was a man of the earth, and the earth he knew held secrets. He just never imagined that one of those secrets would be so close, so deep, so terrifyingly real. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the yard, but Elias remained rooted to the spot, his gaze fixed on the stable, a dark, brooding presence at the edge of his vision. The whispers from the night before still echoed in his mind, a phantom sound that raised the hairs on his arms. He had dismissed them as the creaking of old wood, the settling of the earth, the tricks of a tired mind. But deep down, a seed of unease had been planted, a nagging suspicion that something was amiss. He had always been a practical man, a man who dealt in tangible realities, the feel of rich soil between his fingers, the scent of freshly cut hay, the lowing of cattle. This was different. This was something that defied explanation, something that gnawed at the edges of his rational mind. He took a deep breath, the scent of dry earth and distant dust filling his lungs. He had a day's work ahead of him, a never-ending list of chores that demanded his attention. But the stable, with its unsettling silence, drew his gaze again and again. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that he couldn't ignore it much longer. The whispers were growing louder, demanding to be heard, demanding to be understood. He was a farmer, a simple man, but he was also a man who had faced hardship with unwavering resolve. He had buried his loved ones, battled the elements, and wrestled with the unforgiving land. He would face this too. Whatever it was, he would face it, and he would understand. The sun was now a fiery orb in the sky, casting a golden glow over Willow Creek, but Elias felt no warmth. The chill remained, a constant companion, a harbinger of the unknown. He turned, his gaze sweeping across his desolate farm, a silent promise forming in his heart. He would fight for this land, for the memories it held, for the faint hope of a future. He would fight until his last breath, and as he stepped off the porch, Barnaby falling into step beside him, a new resolve hardened his jaw. The whispers in the stable would not remain a mystery for long. He would uncover their source, no matter what dark truths they revealed. This was his land, his legacy, and he would not let it be consumed by shadows. He would bring light to the darkness, even if that light revealed something more terrifying than he could ever imagine. The silence of the morning was broken only by the crunch of his boots on the dry earth, a rhythmic sound that spoke of purpose and unwavering determination. He was ready for whatever the whispering earth had in store for him. Before we delve deeper into this mystery, if you're enjoying this story and want to see more content like this, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below, telling us where you're watching from. Your participation is very important to us. The sound in the stable became a relentless companion, a low, insistent thrum that vibrated not just through the floorboards, but through Elias's very bones. It was no longer a mere whisper. It was a distinct rhythmic pulse like a slow ancient heartbeat emanating from the earth itself. It wasn't the familiar creak of settling wood, nor the rustle of nocturnal creatures. This was something else, something alien and unsettling. Elias, driven by a gnawing curiosity that warred with a deep-seated fear, began his solitary investigation. He'd spend hours in the stable, lantern clutched in hand, tracing the source of the sound. It always led him back to that same spot on the packed dirt floor, where the earth was inexplicably darker, almost slick with an unnatural moisture. The air there was heavy, thick with the metallic tang he'd noticed before, now mixed with a strange earthy aroma that was both repulsive and strangely compelling. It was the smell of something ancient, something that had been buried for a very long time. He started to dig, not with a shovel, not at first. He used his hands, scraping away the topsoil, feeling the vibrations intensify with every handful of dirt he displaced. The earth beneath his fingers felt strangely warm, almost alive, as if it were breathing. He worked in secret, under the cloak of night, the only witness Barnaby, who would stand at the stable door, a low growl rumbling in his chest, his hackles raised, refusing to step inside. The dog's unease was a stark confirmation of Elias's own mounting dread. Barnaby, usually fearless, would whine and paw at the ground outside, his eyes fixed on the dark interior of the stable, a silent plea for Elias to stop. But Elias couldn't. He was caught in its grip, an invisible force pulling him deeper into the earth's secrets. He felt a growing pressure in his chest, a suffocating sensation that told him he was unearthing something that should have remained hidden, something that carried a heavy price. The dream started then. Vivid, unsettling visions of strange, pulsating lights dancing in the darkness, accompanied by a chorus of whispering voices that seemed to call his name, beckoning him into an abyss of unknown knowledge. He'd wake in a cold sweat, the echoes of the whispers still ringing in his ears, the metallic scent clinging to his nostrils, the line between reality and nightmare blurred, each day a slow descent into an obsession that consumed his every waking thought. He spent sleepless nights in the stable, listening, observing, the rhythmic thrumming a constant reminder of the mystery beneath his feet. The farm, once a place of arduous labor and simple routines, had transformed into a stage for a supernatural drama, a silent play with Elias as its unwitting protagonist. He began to see shadows shifting in the periphery of his vision, fleeting glimpses of movement that vanished when he turned his head. He heard faint echoes of voices when no one was around, disembodied whispers that seemed to weave through the very air of his desolate home. He was alone, confronting something that defied his understanding, something that threatened to unravel the very fabric of his sanity. With each spadeful of earth he removed, with each layer of mystery he peeled back, he felt himself drawing closer to something monumental, something that held the promise of salvation, but also the chilling certainty of danger. The earth, which had always been his steadfast ally, now seemed to be guarding a dark secret, a truth that could either liberate him or destroy him. And Elias, with a desperate hope born of desperation, was determined to unearth it, no matter the cost. He was a man possessed, driven by a force he couldn't comprehend, a force that promised answers, but demanded everything in return. The digging continued, a slow, methodical excavation into the heart of the unknown. He hit something hard, something metallic, buried deep beneath layers of compacted soil. The sound changed then, a dull clang that resonated through the stable, a sound that was undeniably artificial, undeniably man-made. He scraped away the dirt with renewed vigor, his fingers raw and bleeding, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The object was large, flat, and cold to the touch, its surface rough with rust and ancient grime. He couldn't see its full extent, but he knew, with a chilling certainty, that it was not a rock, not a forgotten piece of farm equipment. This was something else entirely. This was what had been making the sound. This was what the earth had been whispering about. And as he continued to dig, a sense of foreboding settled over him, a heavy weight that pressed down on his chest. He was close, so close to uncovering the truth, but he also knew that some truths were best left buried. But it was too late. The digging had begun and there was no turning back. The metallic scent intensified, almost overwhelming, and the air grew colder, despite the oppressive summer heat. He felt a strange tingling sensation in his fingertips, a faint hum that seemed to emanate from the buried object itself. He was not just digging for answers, He was digging for his destiny, and the earth, silent now, seemed to hold its breath, waiting for him to reveal its ancient secret. He was a man on the precipice, teetering on the edge of a discovery that would change everything, and the only way forward was down, deeper and deeper into the whispering earth. The sun rose and set, marking the passage of days, but Elias barely noticed. His world had shrunk to the confines of the stable, to the rhythmic thud of his pickaxe against the unyielding earth, to the growing pile of excavated soil. He was a man consumed, driven by an insatiable need to uncover the truth. He ate little, slept less, his body aching, his mind a whirlwind of speculation and dread. He was a ghost, haunting his own farm, a shadow moving through the desolate landscape. And then the external pressure began to mount, a relentless assault on his already fragile existence. Silas, his shrewd and envious neighbor, had always coveted Elias's land. Willow Creek, despite its current state of disrepair, held a strategic position, its fertile soil a tempting prize. Silas, a man whose eyes gleamed with avarice, had been observing Elias's unusual activity in the stable, the late-night lights, the constant presence. He saw an opportunity, a chance to finally seize what he believed was rightfully his. He began to spread rumors in the small, tight-knit community, whispers about Elias's sanity, insinuations that the old farmer was losing his mind, driven mad by grief and solitude. "He's out there, digging in the dead of night," Silas would say, his voice dripping with false concern, talking to himself, muttering about voices in the ground. The seeds of doubt were sown, and in a community where reputation was everything, they took root quickly. Elias felt the stares, the hushed conversations, the subtle avoidance of his neighbors. He was becoming an outcast, a pariah, his already isolated existence made even more unbearable. The pressure from his mounting debts also intensified. The bank, relentless and unforgiving, sent increasingly stern letters, threats of foreclosure looming large. The farm, his legacy, his last connection to his family was on the verge of being repossessed. Elias felt trapped, caught between the terrifying mystery in the stable and the relentless external forces closing in on him. Silas would appear at the farm with increasing frequency, offering flimsy excuses for his presence, a borrowed tool, a friendly chat, but Elias knew his true purpose. He was there to observe, to sniff out any weakness, any sign of Elias's impending collapse. Silas's words, seemingly innocuous, were laced with venom, corroding Elias's already fragile standing in the community. The bank's notices, stark and unforgiving, piled up on his kitchen table, each one a fresh wound, the weight of the world pressed down on his shoulders, a crushing burden that threatened to break him. He knew time was running out. He had to uncover what lay beneath the stable floor before everything was lost. The urgency was a constant companion, a frantic drumbeat in his ears. He couldn't fail. Not now. Not when he was so close to the truth, so close to a potential salvation. The whispers from the earth had led him this far, and he would follow them to their conclusion. No matter how dark or dangerous that path might be, he would fight for his land, for his family's memory, for his very soul. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, ominous shadows across Willow Creek, Elias returned to the stable, his pickaxe a familiar weight in his hand, ready to face whatever secrets the whispering earth was prepared to reveal. The clang of metal against metal echoed through the stable, a sharp, resonant sound that cut through the oppressive silence. Elias, his muscles screaming in protest, his hands raw and blistered, had finally broken through. Beneath layers of compacted earth and ancient stone, he unearthed a large rectangular metal box, its surface encrusted with centuries of rust and grime. It was heavy, far heavier than he anticipated, and a strange faint hum emanated from within. With trembling hands he pried open the corroded lid. Inside, nestled amongst what appeared to be desiccated leaves and fragments of ancient cloth, lay two objects: a thick, leather-bound journal, its pages brittle and yellowed with age, and a peculiar artifact. The artifact was unlike anything Elias had ever seen. It was a smooth, dark stone intricately carved with symbols that seemed to writhe and shift in the dim light of his lantern. It pulsed with a faint internal luminescence, a soft, ethereal glow that cast dancing shadows on the stable walls. As his fingers brushed against its cool surface, a jolt, like static electricity, shot through him, and he felt an inexplicable connection, a resonance deep within his very being. It was as if the stone recognized him, or perhaps had been waiting for him. He carefully lifted the journal, its leather cover crumbling slightly in his grasp. The faint scent of old paper and something else, something akin to dried herbs and forgotten magic, wafted up from its pages. He opened it to a random page, his eyes scanning the faded, elegant script. It was written in English, but an older, more formal style, and the words seemed to leap off the page imbued with a strange, compelling power. The journal, he soon discovered, was a chronicle, a testament to generations of his own family, dating back to the very first Thorn who had settled this land. It spoke of a hidden treasure, not of gold or jewels, but of something far more profound, something that lay buried beneath Willow Creek, a secret passed down through the bloodline. But with the promise of this extraordinary discovery came a chilling warning, a curse. The journal detailed a malevolent force, an ancient entity tied to the land, a guardian of the treasure that would unleash its wrath upon anyone who sought to exploit its power for selfish gain. The artifact, the journal explained, was the key, a conduit to this ancient power, a tool that could either bring prosperity or utter ruin. Elias spent the next few days immersed in the journal, deciphering its cryptic passages, piecing together the fragmented history of his family and the true nature of the land he had inherited. He learned of rituals and prophecies, of a symbiotic relationship between the Thorns and the earth, a bond that had been broken generations ago, leading to the decline of Willow Creek. The treasure, he realized, was not a material fortune, but an ancestral knowledge, a profound understanding of the land's hidden energies, its life-giving properties, its ability to heal and to sustain. It was a power that could transform Willow Creek from a desolate wasteland into a verdant paradise, a beacon of hope for the entire community. But the curse was real. He felt its presence, a cold, insidious shadow that clung to him, a constant reminder of the dangers that lurked beneath the surface. He understood now that the earth was not merely guarding a treasure, it was guarding a power, a force that demanded respect, a force that had a price. With each page he turned, with each secret he unveiled, he felt more connected to the past, to the generations of Thorns who had walked this land before him. But he also felt more vulnerable, more exposed to the present dangers that threatened to consume him. The artifact in his hand pulsed with an energy that mirrored his own racing heart, a vibrant hum that seemed to resonate with the very core of his being. He knew with a chilling certainty that his life would never be the same. He stood on the precipice of a discovery that could save him, save his farm, save Willow Creek, or utterly destroy him. The weight of generations rested on his shoulders, the fate of his family's legacy in his hands. He was no longer just a poor farmer. He was a guardian, a keeper of ancient secrets, a man chosen by destiny, and the journey had only just begun. The air in the stable, once thick with dust and despair, now crackled with an almost palpable energy, a silent hum that seemed to emanate from the unearthed artifact. Elias, lost in the ancient script of the journal, barely registered the creak of the stable door, the subtle shift in the shadows. But Barnaby, ever vigilant, let out a low, guttural growl, his hackles rising, his eyes fixed on the doorway. Elias looked up, his heart lurching in his chest. Standing silhouetted against the fading light of dusk was Silas, his neighbor, his eyes narrowed, a predatory gleam in their depths. He wasn't alone. Two hulking figures, Silas's usual muscle, flanked him, their faces grim, their intentions clear. Well, Elias," Silas sneered, his voice dripping with false cordiality. "Looks like you finally found what you were looking for." Elias clutched the journal and the artifact tighter, his knuckles white. "Get out, Silas. This doesn't concern you." Silas laughed, a harsh grating sound that grated on Elias's nerves. "Oh, but it does, old man. More than you know. My family, the Blackwoods, we've been watching this land for generations. We know about the treasure, we know about the power, and we know it belongs to us." Elias stared, dumbfounded. The Blackwoods? The journal had mentioned a rival family, a lineage that had sought to claim the Thorns' legacy for their own, driven by greed and a thirst for power. Silas, it seemed, was a direct descendant of that cursed line. The tension in the stable became a living thing, a coiled serpent ready to strike. Silas took a step forward, his eyes fixed on the pulsating artifact in Elias's hand. "Hand it over, Elias. And the journal. You're too old, too weak to understand what you've found. It's wasted on you." "Never." Elias growled, his voice low and firm, a surprising strength in his tone. "This is my land. This is my family's legacy, and you'll never have it." Silas's face contorted in a mask of rage. "Fool, you think you can stand against me? Against us?" He gestured to his men. "Take it from him." The two men lunged, their movements swift and brutal. Elias, despite his age and weariness, moved with a surprising agility, fueled by a desperate resolve. He dodged the first man's clumsy grab, swinging the heavy journal like a club, catching the second man in the jaw. Barnaby, a blur of fur and teeth, launched himself at Silas's legs, snarling, his loyalty unwavering. The stable erupted into a chaotic melee. Elias fought with the ferocity of a cornered animal, defending not just his life but the very soul of his farm. He used the familiar terrain to his advantage, ducking behind hay bales, scrambling over overturned buckets, turning the stable into a labyrinth of shadows and unexpected obstacles. Silas, enraged by Barnaby's attack, kicked the dog away, sending him sprawling. "Worthless cur!" he spat, his eyes burning with a venomous hatred. He pulled a glinting knife from his belt, its blade catching the faint light from the artifact. "You want to play rough, old man? Let's play rough." The confrontation escalated, the stakes higher than ever. Elias knew he was outmatched, outnumbered, but he also knew that retreat was not an option. This was his home, his last stand. He had to protect the artifact, the journal, the secrets they held. He had to protect Willow Creek. The air grew thick with the scent of sweat and fear, the sounds of grunts and curses echoing off the stable walls. Elias, battered and bruised, felt a surge of adrenaline, a primal instinct to survive. He was fighting for his past, for his present, and for a future he was only just beginning to imagine. And as Silas lunged, knife raised, Elias knew this was it, the moment of truth. The battle for Willow Creek had truly begun. Silas lunged, the glint of his knife a cold, deadly promise in the dim light of the stable. Elias, his breath ragged, his body screaming in protest, met his gaze with a defiance born of desperation. This was it, the culmination of weeks of fear, of mystery, of relentless pressure. The fate of Willow Creek, of his family's legacy, hung precariously in the balance. As Silas's arm arced downwards, the ancient artifact in Elias's hand began to thrum, a low, resonant vibration that intensified with each beat of his frantic heart. The faint luminescence it had emitted before now flared, a blinding white light that pulsed with an almost unbearable intensity, pushing back the encroaching shadows. Silas, caught off guard by the sudden brilliance, stumbled, his eyes widening in shock and fear. He tried to shield his face, but the light seemed to penetrate his very being, exposing something raw and vulnerable within him. He recoiled, a guttural cry escaping his lips, as if burned by an unseen fire. The artifact, now fully activated, seemed to have a will of its own, reacting to the raw energy of the confrontation. It pulsed, not just with light, but with a palpable force, an invisible shield that repelled Silas and his men. They were thrown back as if struck by an unseen hand, sprawling amidst the hay and scattered tools. Silas, blinded by greed and rage, scrambled to his feet, his eyes still fixed on the glowing artifact. He lunged again, a desperate, primal roar tearing from his throat, attempting to snatch the source of this power. But as his fingers brushed against the shimmering aura surrounding the stone, he was met with an invisible wall, a shockwave of pure energy that sent him reeling backward, slamming against the stable wall with a sickening thud. The stable itself seemed to groan in protest, its ancient timbers creaking and groaning as if under immense pressure. The earth beneath their feet began to tremble, a low, rumbling tremor that intensified with each pulse of the artifact's light. Cracks snaked across the packed dirt floor, radiating outwards from the spot where Elias had unearthed the box, as if the very ground was tearing itself apart. The air grew heavy, thick with the metallic scent, now laced with something else, something ancient and primal, a scent that spoke of raw power and forgotten magic. And then, the malediction. The journal had warned of it, a curse that would manifest when the treasure was threatened, a force that would unleash the deepest fears of those who sought to exploit it. Illusions began to dance in the flickering light, grotesque figures emerging from the shadows, whispering accusations, manifesting the unspoken guilt and terror in the hearts of Silas and his men. One of Silas's thugs, a burly man named Jed, let out a terrified shriek, dropping his makeshift weapon. His eyes, wide with horror, stared at something Elias couldn't see, something that clearly existed only in Jed's tormented mind. He stumbled backward, tripping over his own feet, his hands clawing at the air as if fending off invisible attackers. The other thug, a wiry man named Cole, began to whimper, his face pale, his body trembling uncontrollably. He saw his own past transgressions, his own betrayals, magnified and distorted by the malevolent force, a tormenting symphony of his deepest regrets. Silas, though more resilient, was not immune. His eyes darted wildly, his face contorted in a mixture of fear and disbelief. He saw his own avarice, his own envy reflected back at him, a monstrous visage that mocked his ambition. The stable, once a battleground, had become a crucible of fear, a stage for the manifestation of their darkest nightmares. Elias, though shaken by the raw power emanating from the artifact, remained steadfast. He had read the journal, understood the nature of the curse. He knew this was not an attack on him but a defense of the land, a retribution against those who sought to desecrate its sacred secrets. He used the knowledge gleaned from the ancient text, focusing his will, not on destruction but on protection. He channeled the artifact's energy, not to harm, but to amplify the fear already festering in the hearts of his attackers. The light from the artifact intensified not with a harsh burning glare, but with a soft enveloping warmth that seemed to push back the encroaching darkness, revealing the truth, exposing the malevolence. Barnaby, who had been momentarily stunned by Silas's kick, now sprang back into action. A blur of fur and teeth, he launched himself at the still reeling thugs, his barks echoing through the stable, a primal roar of defiance. He nipped at their heels, snarled at their faces, a loyal guardian defending his master. His presence, a beacon of unwavering loyalty, seemed to ground Elias, reminding him that he was not truly alone. Silas, his face a mask of desperation, made one last, desperate lunge, his knife still clutched in his trembling hand. He ignored the terrifying visions, the whispers of his own damnation, his focus solely on the glowing artifact. But as he closed in, the light from the stone flared one last time, and a vision, more terrifying than any other, materialized before him. It was a manifestation of the malediction itself, a swirling vortex of shadows and ancient symbols, its form shifting and coalescing into a grotesque, skeletal figure, its eyes burning with an ancient, unforgiving rage. Silas froze, his body rigid with terror, the knife clattering to the floor. He let out a strangled cry, a sound of pure, unadulterated fear, and then he collapsed, his mind shattered by the overwhelming horror. The stable, once a place of mundane toil, had become a battleground between light and shadow, between greed and faith, and Elias, the humble farmer, stood as its unlikely guardian, wielding a power he was only just beginning to comprehend. He was exhausted, every muscle in his body screaming in protest, but a profound sense of calm settled over him. He had faced the darkness, and he had not faltered. He had protected his land, his legacy, and the ancient secrets entrusted to his care. The light from the artifact began to dim, its pulsating glow softening as if satisfied with the outcome. The tremors in the earth subsided, and the air, though still thick with the lingering scent of ancient magic, began to clear. The shadows receded, taking with them the terrifying illusions, leaving behind only the stunned and broken figures of Silas and his men. Elias looked at them, not with triumph, but with a quiet understanding. They had sought to take what was not theirs, to exploit a power they did not comprehend, and the land in its ancient wisdom had judged them. He was on the brink of losing everything. The farm, his home, his very life, had been hanging by a thread. The confrontation had been brutal, a desperate struggle for survival. He had been outmatched, outnumbered, facing men driven by a ruthless greed. But in that moment of ultimate peril, something within him had ignited, a fierce, unwavering resolve that transcended his physical limitations. He had fought with the ferocity of a cornered animal, but also with the cunning of a man who knew every inch of his domain. He had used the familiar terrain of the stable to his advantage, turning its every corner, every shadow, every scattered tool into a weapon, a shield. He had ducked behind hay bales, scrambled over overturned buckets, transforming the mundane space into a treacherous labyrinth for his attackers. He had remembered the words of his father, whispered to him on long summer nights, about the land, about its secrets, about the strength that lay hidden within its very soil. and he had found that strength within himself. Barnaby, his loyal companion, had been an unexpected, yet crucial, ally. The old dog, with his unwavering loyalty, had launched himself at the thugs, his barks and snarls a furious distraction, giving Elias precious seconds to react, to strategize. Barnaby's presence, a warm, furry anchor in the storm of chaos, had reminded Elias that he was not truly alone, that he had a steadfast companion in this desperate fight. Elias's intelligence, his deep familiarity with the farm, with every hidden nook and cranny, every shortcut, every potential trap, became his greatest weapon. He knew where the light was weakest, where the shadows were deepest, where a loose board could trip an unsuspecting foot. He transformed the stable into a tactical masterpiece, a battlefield where his knowledge of the environment gave him an undeniable edge. The battle had been a brutal game of chess, and Elias, the seemingly insignificant pawn, had refused to be captured. He had fought with the fury of a lion, the cunning of a fox, and the unwavering faith of a man who had nothing left to lose but everything to gain. He had fought for his memories, for his future, for the very soul of Willow Creek. And as the last echoes of the struggle faded and the stable settled back into an uneasy silence, Elias stood, bruised and battered, but unbroken. He had faced the darkness and he had emerged, not unscathed, but victorious. The clanging of metal, the shouts, the terrified screams, all faded into the background, replaced by the rhythmic thud of his own heart, a testament to his survival. He had risked everything, and in doing so he had found a strength he never knew he possessed. The climax had passed, and the dawn of a new day, a new beginning, was on the horizon. But first there was the aftermath, the quiet reckoning, the understanding of what had truly transpired in the heart of Willow Creek. Silas and his men, broken and terrified, fled Willow Creek under the cover of darkness, their screams echoing through the night, a chilling testament to the power of the malediction and the truth revealed by the artifact. They were never seen again, their greed and malevolence swallowed by the very land they sought to exploit. Elias, bruised but unbowed, stood amidst the wreckage of his stable, the artifact now glowing with a soft, benevolent light in his hand. The journal, its pages no longer brittle but vibrant with renewed energy, lay open on a nearby bale of hay. He had won, not through brute force but through understanding, through faith, and through the ancient wisdom that had been entrusted to him. The victory was not just his, it was Willow Creek's. With the knowledge gleaned from the journal, Elias discovered a hidden network of subterranean springs, a vast untapped reservoir of life-giving water that lay beneath his parched fields. He worked tirelessly, guided by the ancient texts, to tap into this source, transforming his arid land into a verdant oasis. The withered crops began to flourish, the dry earth drank deeply, and the farm, once a symbol of despair, became a beacon of hope and prosperity. The true treasure, he realized, was not gold or jewels, but the ancestral knowledge, the profound understanding of the earth's cycles, its hidden energies, its ability to heal and to sustain. It was a wisdom that allowed him to work in harmony with the land, not against it, unlocking its true potential. Willow Creek, once a forgotten corner of the world, began to thrive. The news of Elias's miraculous transformation spread, and people from neighboring towns came to witness the verdant fields, the abundant harvests. He shared his knowledge freely, teaching others the ancient ways, the sustainable practices that had been lost to time. The community, once skeptical and wary, embraced him, their gratitude a warm balm to his long-held solitude. The debts, once a crushing burden, were swiftly paid off, and Elias, no longer a solitary, desperate man, found a new purpose, a new meaning in his life. He was no longer just a farmer. He was a guardian, a teacher, a living testament to the power of resilience and the enduring spirit of the land. The curse, he understood now, was not a punishment but a warning, a protective mechanism of the earth against those who would exploit it. It was broken not by destruction, but by comprehension, by respect, by a symbiotic relationship between man and nature. Elias, the humble farmer, became a legend in his own time, a whispered tale of courage and faith, a man who had faced the unknown and emerged victorious. He never felt truly alone again, for the land, his family's legacy, and the thriving community were now inextricably linked to him, a constant source of strength and companionship. The farm, once a place of pain and loss, had been transformed into a home, a sanctuary, a vibrant testament to the power of hope and the unwavering spirit of the human heart. And Elias, the man who had dared to unearth the unknown, finally found the peace he had so desperately sought. Years passed. Elias Thorne, now an older, wiser man, sat on the porch of his prosperous farm, the setting sun casting long, golden shadows across his verdant fields. Barnaby, his muzzle now completely white, lay curled at his feet, a contented sigh escaping his old body. Elias watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, and reflected on his extraordinary journey. The whispers in the stable, the terrifying confrontation, the ancient secrets revealed. It all seemed like a distant dream, yet the tangible proof of its reality was all around him. The lush fields, the flowing springs, the laughter of children playing in the distance, all were testaments to the power of faith, the courage that had propelled him forward, and the unwavering loyalty of his faithful companion. The lesson was clear, etched into the very fabric of Willow Creek. True wealth was not found in gold or material possessions, but in the profound connection to the earth, to the community, and to the deepest parts of one's own soul. He looked towards the stable, no longer a place of dread, but a symbol of transformation, a place where darkness had given way to light, where fear had been conquered by understanding. The mystery had been unraveled, the curse broken, and the destiny of Willow Creek had been rewritten, not by chance but by choice, by the unwavering spirit of one man. The camera slowly pulls back, revealing the sprawling, flourishing farm, a vibrant tapestry of life and hope against the darkening sky. It stands as a beacon, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope can blossom and miracles can unfold. Elias's voice, now calm and resonant, fills the air, a gentle invitation to those who listen. And if you've enjoyed this journey, this tale of a farmer and the secrets of the Whispering Earth, don't forget to watch our next video and subscribe for more incredible stories. Your support helps us bring these tales to life. The screen fades to black, leaving behind a lingering sense of peace, of inspiration, and the quiet understanding that sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden where we least expect them, and that faith and courage can indeed turn fear into a miracle. The story of Elias Thorne, the farmer who unearthed more than he ever imagined, becomes a timeless reminder that the earth holds not just secrets, but also the keys to our own transformation.